Yo, what's going on, everyone? Tom here. You've got me for the next, hour and a bit, talking about FanTeam. Yeah, I didn't know if I'd enter, but I've been pushed into it. I've got a FanTeam going, so yeah, really excited to play for the World Cup. Everyone's very welcome that's in the stream. Feel free to say hello in the chat, ask any questions, and I'll cover them throughout. What I thought I'd do is quickly start things off, maybe for new players who are new to FanTeam, want to know a little bit how the pricing is structured, know a little bit about the rules and how the point scoring works. It's very similar to the FPL that we all know and love, with some slight nuances. So I'll start off with the main rules of the game, and then we can go into some points. So first up, there are two games that you can play during the World Cup. I could only find a graphic with the rules against the 50k game, but I'm pretty sure the rules are the same for each game, except for the number of entries you can get in the prize money. So for the 50k prize pool game, it's a £5 buy-in, and you're only allowed one team. And then there is a 100k prize pool game with a £25 or a £20 buy-in. And you can have up to 25 entries, I think, in that. So yeah, sort of catering for both kinds of fantasy players, because there was a bit of grief I think FanTeam got a couple of Premier League seasons ago, where you could have a number of teams, and I think one guy absolutely cleaned up the prize pool. So they're trying to cater for both now, which is nice to see. And then just reading through the rules, we've all got 90 million to spend on a team, with that budget increasing to 95 for game week 5. You've got 11 players. You must have a goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 2 midfielders, and a forward. So there are a number of formations that you can play within that. One of the important things to note is that there is no bench, and FanTeam have an auto substitution rule, where basically if the player doesn't play that's in your 11, he will be automatically substituted for someone else for that same team and position that's of a matching price or cheaper. So that's quite an interesting dynamic to think about when picking your teams, because obviously you risk some players not playing, but if you pick someone that's a bit of a doubt, if there's someone else in that team of the same price or cheaper, they'll be automatically substituted in if your player doesn't start. Well, yeah, we can make any free changes right up until the deadline of the first game. It's usual captain shebang. You get double points for your captain, and I think double minus points if obviously your captain scores negative. So you get until the first kickoff of, by the looks of it, the opening game week fixture, which is really nice. So you can see the lineups of the first game, and you automatically get a wild card ahead of the quarterfinals. So you can switch out your entire team, if you like, ahead of the quarterfinals. So yeah, all transfers during that time are free and unlimited. There are 2 free transfers for each game week, and you get for 2, 3, and 4, and you get 3 free transfers for game week 6 and 7. And you can obviously make extra transfers, but that costs you a -4 in points, just like in FPL. It looks like you can carry over your free transfers each week up until the game week 4 deadline. So when that wildcard comes in, you lose any transfers you've gained, but it looks like you can roll transfers between weeks, which is quite nice. I think it adds yet another piece of strategy that you could deploy during the game. You only score points during the regular time and injury time. If it goes to extra time and penalties, that doesn't count for fantasy. I think that's the same for pretty much all the games, to be honest. I already mentioned the safety net. There will be no player price changes, which is nice. Usually FanTeam do a weekly price rise and price fall, etc. But there'll be none of that during this tournament, which is good to see. I don't know what stacking penalties actually mean. Someone in the chat might be able to chime in there. But yeah, I don't actually know what that means. But from a late registration perspective, sometimes FanTeam let you enter a team into like the 3rd or 4th game week. I think back in the Premier League, you could enter a late entry into their Premier League game, and I think the same happened with the Euros as well. But this time around, there's no late entries, or at least that's the case for the 50k game. £5 buy-in for the 50k game. One team. And the guaranteed prize pool is 50k, and just looking, I think they've got more entries than so basically they've made their money back on entries already, and the prize pool is now 56k, so the winner gets slightly more than the 5k that's been suggested there. And yeah, if once you've entered you can't get a refund, I might have a quick look while we're here just to see exactly how many positions place, because I think you could probably finish like within the top like 1,000 and probably make your money back, which is quite nice. So it's not all about just winning the game in FanTeam. They've got quite a nice prize money system where a number of positions will get paid at least some money back. So yeah, that's quite nice. Also mentioned that the scoring in FanTeam was slightly different to FPL. So basically you can get up to 3 points as a midfielder or attacker for playing the full duration of a match. So you get 1 point for 60 minutes, for below 60 minutes, 1 point for above 60 minutes. Then if your player plays the full match and they're a midfielder or attacker, you get a bonus 1 point as well. Obviously differing points, 8, 6, 5, 4 for a goalkeeper, defender, midfielder or forward scoring a goal. You get 4 points for a clean sheet for a goalkeeper or defender and 1 point for a midfielder. You get a -1 if you concede 2 goals. Usual 3 points for an assist. That applies to every position. Scoring an own goal is worth -2. Missing a penalty is worth -2. Interestingly, for the goalkeepers, and I think it's one thing that's quite nice for FanTeam over FPL, is that you get 0.5 points for every save that your goalkeeper makes, and there's no cap. Whereas in FPL, I think you only get 2 or 3 points, depending on how many saves your goalkeeper makes. In FanTeam, it's unlimited. I know it's only 0.5 points per save, but that can really add up. 5 points for saving a penalty, -1 for a yellow, -3 for a red, -2. You get some minus points basically for conceding a free kick that a goal is scored from, and also for causing a penalty. So that's worth -2. And then you get some bonus points if the player's team win or loses a match, and then some bonus points for shots on target. The shots on target and saves bonuses can really add up for some players, particularly like goalkeepers who might not necessarily keep clean sheets but make lots of saves. In FanTeam at least, they can be worth almost as much as a goalkeeper for like the likes of Brazil, who probably won't make many saves but keep quite a few clean sheets. So it's just one thing to consider when you're looking at FanTeam. Next up, I was just going to go through the groups really and just provide some of my thoughts on teams, players I like the look of from each of them, etc. We've also got some questions in the chat that I'll just have a look at. So Andy Barnett, the Dream Team FC Lowdown, he asks us, what is a good strategy for saving or using transfers considering there is a safety net and wildcard? I think I covered this in the Skypod that I did earlier in the week. In my opinion, I think the best way to use transfers is to get onto the teams that look really good quickly if you don't already own them. So after match week 1, and it was certainly the case during the Euros anyway, Italy during the Euros just looked ridiculous. And I think that was an absolute sign to anyone to just hop right on them because they were immediately like tournament favourites. And I think we'll see that in this tournament as well. I think there'll be 1 or 2 teams that look really good. One of my early bets, I think, is Argentina. I think they're looking pretty good. But yeah, I would say using transfers quickly to get on the hot players. And also some of the big teams have tough opponents in the group as well. So the likes of Spain and Germany are in a group with one another. For example, in Denmark and France, I imagine people will have players from all of those teams. Maybe using your transfers to get rid of those players when they've got a more difficult game could be a good way to go. With 3 transfers every week, like rolling transfers, 2 transfers every week, I think it is, isn't it? Let's have a look at those rules again. But yeah, with 2 transfers every week, I think once you get to like the match week 2, you probably have a team that you're quite happy with, and then obviously match week 3, if teams are already through into the last 16, there might be a bit of rotation. But again, that's where the sort of safety net comes in. So yeah, just one to think about. But I think getting on the good teams early is a good way to use your transfers. Manchester, I'm only doing mate. I think I've only gonna do one team, to be honest. As much as I love FanTeam and fantasy football, I do want to relax a little bit during the tournament. So I think I'm just gonna have a single entry team in the £5 game and just play with that. But yeah, like we were saying, once the World Cup starts, there's only one deadline to look after per week, and limited transfers. So hopefully that will still keep me engaged enough. But yeah, I've got the groups on the screen here, and I was just going to go through each of them and pick out some teams that looked quite exciting. Firstly, starting with Group A, I think this is a really good group for the Netherlands. At the moment, and I'll show you my team towards the end of this, but I've currently got 2 Netherlands players, could be 3, I could just be tripled up straight away. I think their defence is looking pretty good. They've got some really high quality players in their defence, and they're playing 3 teams in their group that aren't necessarily going to light the world up from an attacking perspective. Obviously, Senegal have Mane, but he doesn't look to be fit for the first at least couple of games, I don't think. So yeah, just want to consider there. I think Holland are looking pretty good in that group. To be honest, I'm not considering any Qatari, Ecuadorian or Senegalese players in my fan team at the moment. I might be mistaken there. But anyone can chime in the chat there, really. But I've not at the moment got any like super cheap enablers in my team. I've managed to build what I think is quite a balanced team, without going into like the bargain basement budget players. Obviously, Group B's got England in it, and to be honest, England should walk that group. I think USA and Wales and Iran will give them, they won't be easy games, but I would back England's defence to pick up at least 2 or 3 clean sheets in there. So I do like the look of obviously the England defenders that we expect to play, and obviously with the safety net rule, I think the likes of Trippier, etc., even if they don't play, you'll get someone else in for them. So I definitely think picking England defenders is a good way to go. Likewise, Group C, I think there's one outstanding team in that group, being Argentina. They look really good. I think they just played a friendly yesterday, albeit against the UAE, who were defending I saw Messi's goal. They defended absolutely terribly. So I don't know how much we can take from that game. But yeah, they're obviously off the back of a Copa America win. It's Messi's last World Cup. At least last World Cup when he's in his pomp. I think it's almost written in the stars for them to have a good tournament. I just get the vibe they've got a really solid team all round, a really good group. They've just come off the back of winning a tournament in South America, and I think they could go onto the world stage and do the same. I really like the look of all of their options in FanTeam, really. Martinez in goal. They've got a number of defenders I think you could pick. Obviously, Messi's going to be really popular. I think Martinez, their striker, could be quite popular as well. Obviously, picking him against Kane and Mbappe could be a tough call. But yeah, that's it really for Group C. I think Poland, Szczesny could be an option. Obviously, he does play Argentina at some point, but he, of me, is like my pick of like the value keepers. So I do think Poland are okay defensively. But as for Saudi Arabia and Mexico, I'm not delving that deep in my team. Feel free to chime in again in the chat if there are players that I'm missing from Saudi Arabia and Mexico, but I'm not really looking at them as options in FanTeam. Group D, we've got France, Australia, Denmark, Tunisia. For me, there are 2 outstanding teams in that group, being France and Denmark. I don't think Tunisia will be an easy game for those teams, but I think France and Denmark should excel in that group. France, I've got, I don't know if it's a controversial opinion about France, but I don't have a single French player in my team at the moment. I don't know if that's ridiculous, but I just have a feeling that they're going to have a really difficult tournament. They've got a number of injuries to key players across their team. So their usual international midfield of Pogba and Kante, they're both injured. Kimpembe, their star centre-back, is injured. I think Benzema is maybe a fitness doubt for the first game. I think they'll be playing a 3 at the back, different sort of formation. And Kunku, I think, is now out of the tournament. I just think everything's thrown up in the air with France at the moment. I do think they'll get out of that group just because of the lack of quality I think that Australia and Tunisia have, but it won't be an easy ride for them. And I think I'm going to avoid their assets. That might be my sort of differential-ish pick going forwards. But yeah, as for French options, I mean, we all know who they are. I think you could quite easily look at their defence if you wanted to back them. and obviously the likes of Mbappe, Griezmann, and Benzema are expected to play, so they're obviously options. And then for Denmark, I've currently got Christian Eriksen in my team. In FanTeam at least, he's 9 million. I quite like, certainly in international fantasy games, I just like picking the talismanic figures, the ones that are on all the corners and set pieces and penalties, because I think the stat is like 1/3 of all international football goals are scored from set pieces. So if you can pick the set piece takers, you're probably gonna get involved in like 1/3 of the goals for the tournament. That's sort of how the trend goes. So I'm really liking Eriksen at 9 million. I think he's good value, as well as like Mailer. They're obviously their flying wing back. He was great at the Euros. I think he's a good option in this game, as well as Schmeichel in goal as well. Schmeichel always seems to turn it on when he plays for Denmark. He's got potential for saves and some clean sheets. And Group E is quite a fun one. You got Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, and Japan. Obviously, the two outstanding teams there are Spain and Germany, at least on paper. I think Spain are heavily backed to keep a clean sheet in their first week, and then they play Germany in match week 2. Spain's a tricky one for me because I think they've got some really good players in their team. I just think they're missing some like key players in those forward positions. Obviously, they've got the likes of Sarabia and Torres and Morata, but I just don't think they're that strong going forward. I think defensively they're pretty sound. They got Laporte, Garcia, Pau Torres, Azpilicueta, Jordi Alba. I think they're in midfield's obviously pretty strong as well, but I just think their goal threat's a bit lacking for me. I definitely don't have any Spain forwards in my team, but I would consider their defence because I think they've got, who have they got first up? I think they've got Costa Rica first up. So yeah, just keep an eye on Spain for that first week. And then Germany as well. I think they're can't really call Germany a dark horse for the World Cup, but they've got an absolutely stacked squad. You can pick players from pretty much every position. I don't actually have a German in my fan team at the moment. That might be a key omission, but yeah, likes of Sane, Gundogan, who takes penalties for them. You can pick Rudiger from their defence. I think Neuer still plays in goal for them, or it might be ter Stegen. But yeah, I like the German defence in midfield. Group F's got Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. Again, I think there are two sort of outstanding teams in that group, being Belgium and Croatia. Although I do think Morocco could be a bit of a dark horse there. I don't expect Canada to get through. Obviously, Belgium feel like they're just coming over the peak now of what their team could be. Unfortunately, without winning a trophy for them, I think just like the likes of Alderweireld, Vertonghen, they're sort of come into the twilight of their careers now. I do actually have a couple of Belgium defence in my team at the moment. I still back them to do quite well. I've got Courtois and Castagna in there at the moment, and I do back Belgium to do quite well defensively. I think Lukaku's a bit of a doubt at the moment from what I've been able to gather. And then Croatia, it's a tough one with them. They're in a similar position to Belgium, aren't they? I think obviously in 2018 they got to the final, and that was really when their squad was sort of in their prime. And I don't think there are many new additions to that Croatia 11 above what played in 2018. I think it's the same guys. They're just 4 years older, so quite similar to Belgium, really. So it'd be interesting to see how well they hold up. I think the Croatia-Morocco sort of battle for like the second spot in that group will be an interesting one. And then Group G, we got Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. I think this will be quite an interesting one. I think Cameroon are backed to not be very good, so they may be a team to target with captaincies against. Obviously, Brazil are one of the favourites to win the whole thing. I think Neymar's pretty close to breaking Pele's all-time scoring record for Brazil. I think he's a couple of goals off it. I've certainly got Neymar in my team. I think pretty much every week he is a captaincy option. For Brazil, he's just that talismanic figure. He's on pretty much all the free kicks. He'll take the penalties. People will be looking up for him to make a pass. I just think Neymar is the talisman for Brazil. Obviously, Serbia, the player I can think of first up is Mitrovic. I think he's a bit of an injury doubt, but they've got a pretty good team, and I think they're they're back to do quite well, as do Switzerland as well. I think Switzerland always show up pretty well on the international scene. Good striker in Embolo, likes of Shaqiri, Akanji, Shah. They got some well-known players in their squad. So I think the battle for second in that group will be close between Serbia and Switzerland, unless obviously there's an upset and Brazil don't do so well. Then final group being Group H, we got Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay and Korea. First up being Portugal. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just not sure what to expect from Portugal. I just really don't know what we're going to get from them. Everything that's going on with Ronaldo at the moment, I know people are trying to ignore it, but it's a bit of a drama. Obviously, Portugal have a pretty stacked squad, but I just don't know what we're going to get with them. I don't know if anyone else feels the same, but of all of those teams that have got a really good squad, I think Portugal are the real ones where I just don't know which way it's going to go. Ghana, I think they've got some good players, but I just don't see them challenging Portugal and Uruguay really. Same with Korea. I do expect Portugal and Uruguay to go through, but I just really don't know what I'm going to get with Portugal. And then for Uruguay, I think they're looking pretty nice actually. I back them to do quite well in this tournament. I've just got the vibe that they'll be a gritty team with some really talented players, likes of Valverde, Nunes, Bentancur, I think Suarez. They got some really good players, and I think some good defenders as well. So they'll be an interesting side. I've got a couple of Uruguayans in my team at the moment. I've picked Araujo. My pronunciation is going to be terrible in this video, so apologies up front. But I've got him at the moment at 5.5 million. And I've gone for Valverde from Madrid in my midfield as well. Just I've seen that he's on all the free kicks for Uruguay. So I'm quite interested in having him for that reason. That gives a little run through for the groups. And I might just do a prediction for like the winner, just for a bit of fun. Personally, I think it's going to be Argentina. I'm not really a gambling man. I know I play FanTeam, but I don't go like high roller into it. But I do think the winners will be Argentina. I just think like the script is written for Messi to win a World Cup, isn't it? And I think it could be this time round. I just think they've got a really good squad, stacked in every position. They look gritty and tough when they need to be, solid defensively. I just think it's written on the wall for Argentina to win it this year. What did I have next? Next up was just a view, if it's useful to anyone, of each of the penalty takers. When you're watching this back, I'll give some credit. It's in the description of my other stream because I've reused this, but it's a really good source online I found for penalty takers for each national team. You can see them all there. I won't read through them all, but I'll just go through the key teams that I picked out when going through the groups. We got Messi as the penalty taker for Argentina. I don't think that's any surprise. Lukaku for Belgium with Hazard as backup. Obviously Neymar takes them for Brazil. Eriksen's the taker for Denmark. Modric being the taker for Croatia. We all know Kane and Mbappe for England and France. Gundogan is the penalty taker for Germany. So I think he scored quite well in the World Cup qualifying games as well. So he's an interesting option. I'm not sure if he's like the 90-minute man for them, but he does get amongst the goals from penalties and open play. And just on the next page, obviously for Holland, it's Depay, who doesn't look to be fit starting up. And then Berghuis. I don't know if Berghuis will actually play either. So it could go to someone like Bergwijn to take the penalties. Who knows? Obviously, Lewandowski for Poland, Ronaldo for Portugal, Mane takes him for Senegal, and Sarr when Mane's not on the pitch. Basically, the rule is for most of these teams is that the best player, the talisman, takes the penalties. And that's why like my talisman mindset around the players that I pick is really coming in, because they just seem to be on all the penalties and set pieces. Then next up, I had a stat from UCL Birkiles. I think that's how you say it. I've given put his Twitter in there to give him a bit of credit, because he's put together a really nice graphic of clean sheet odds for each match day. I don't swear by these sorts of things, but I really do use them as a guide for the players that I pick. And I think this is ranked by match day 1 and 2 combined clean sheet odds. And then the teams are ranked that way. So top really defensively overall. It's clear to see that Argentina are heavily backed by the bookies to do well defensively. So it's funny because this team that I'm looking at the moment doesn't have any Argentina defenders in it. But I think this is definitely telling me to either look at getting one from each team or doubling up. Then interestingly, Belgium are in there as well. I think they've got one of not the easier groups, but on paper, they don't have another really big international team in their group with them. So they're back to do quite well for clean sheets as well, as are France, Brazil, Portugal, Spain, Netherlands. I think Netherlands actually, they're looking really good. They're another team really that don't have another really big nation in their group. They got Senegal, Ecuador, and Qatar. So I at the moment have double Netherlands defence in my team, and you can see the rest from there. Obviously Denmark rated quite highly, but they've got France in their group, which sort of screws the ratings a little bit. But yeah, what I thought I'd do is quickly show you my team. So this is the team that I've got on screen at the moment, and it's not one that I want to stick with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and pick one on screen, go through some of the players in each position, give some of my thoughts on each player, and hopefully that's a nice way of introducing the game to people. And I think what I'll do before the deadline on Sunday, I'll probably record a little video Sunday morning or Saturday evening and just show you my final team. I don't really have any problem publicising my team and my thoughts. I think that would be quite useful for people. So let's see if I can completely wipe this team and start from scratch. So I think looking at those, if we go back to those clean sheet odds quickly, we definitely want to fill our players. We definitely want to fill our team up with Argentinians, English players, Belgian players, those teams with good clean sheet odds. And just from the outset, looking at the way that the pricing is structured, I think that the defensive assets, I think you're going to need 5 defenders basically. I think they offer so much value compared to the midfielders and the strikers. Obviously, all the premium assets are midfielders and strikers, and they're priced accordingly. But I think there's some real value in those defenders. So I think off the back of what I've said, I think I've got to pick. Martinez from Argentina as my goalkeeper. So I'm going to do that first up. Then we're going to have a look at their defenders as well and see if there's any value there. I think 6.5 might be a bit too expensive. So looking at those good teams, I think I want Trippier in there as well. Just thinking of the set pieces, I think he'll be taking a fair few free kicks. And like I said, the old rule with international football is 1/3 of all the goals are from set pieces. So I really like the thought of having Trippier as the set piece taker. I think I'll dip into the Netherlands as well, and Denzel Dumfries, I think he's fit in the Euros, and I think in World Cup qualifying as well. In fact, I've got a really useful thread to show people as well. So a Twitter account and a good friend of mine, FF Bobby, he's produced one of the best threads I've seen for the World Cup. Basically, every team that has any statistics associated with them, he's produced a nice little table which shows all the key stats in terms of each team. So looking at their goals conceded per game in World Cup qualifying, goals scored, their top scorers, accurate passes and tackles. This is more for the Sky game, but also shots on target as well, and then their goals in the Euros. And it's looking like, Holland on average score 3 goals a game in qualifying and concede less than 1. So I think it's fair to say that they're pretty good defensively. Their penalty takers and free kick takers are all Depay, he doesn't look to be fit for the starting games. And then obviously Dumfries had a really good Euros with some really good stats, so attacking wise. So I think I'm going to go for Dumfries. I know he's really expensive at 7, but compared to the others, but I think he's a really good option. Just having a look at the chat, Jamie, I know, that's the thing, isn't it? Some lineups are really uncertain with some teams. I know Brazil, for example, I'm not entirely sure who they're going to play at centre-back. I think Marquinhos is nailed to start, but their second centre-back, I think, between Thiago Silva and Militao is sort of up for grabs. And I think the case is the same for Spain as well, like the likes of, they've got Eric Garcia, Pau Torres and Laporte, and only 2 of those 3 can play. But that's the beauty of the safety net in FanTeam. If you pick someone who's reasonably priced amongst their position and you set it so that someone else automatically comes in, I think that's a good way to go. And I think I might go for Timber as well with the safety net in mind. I think that Holland will play a 3 at the back. That seems to be their preferred formation. And Timber will be the third sort of centre-back alongside someone else. But I think if we pick Timber, we'll automatically get a Holland defender in for every game. And I think with their group, I think they're looking pretty good for getting some clean sheets. And where am I going to go next? So we have a look at those clean sheet odds again. I think I might go for a Danish player. Just having a look at these Danish defenders a second. So yeah, that's the Mailer. I remember during the Euros, Mailer was quite a good value player, wasn't he? But unfortunately, he's quite expensive. He's 6.5 million on this one. So it's probably still a good price for him because of how attacking he is, and Denmark are pretty good defensively. But I think in this game I'm probably going to avoid him. I think that's just a bit too much compared to other players that you can get for that price. So you can pick an Argentinian defender, for example. I mean, the most expensive one of those is 6.5. So I think Mailer I'll be given an avoid. It feels wrong to say that, but I think I'll be avoiding him. I think we'll leave the defence for now because I think who I buy next will depend on how much I have left over when I've picked my the rest of my team. I mentioned Eriksen from the off. I think he just appears to be like that talismanic figure for Denmark. The guy that's on all the penalties, the set pieces, the 33% goals from set pieces rule. And obviously the redemption from the Euros as well. I back Eriksen to have a decent tournament. Just the fact he's the sort of the talismanic figures and on all the set pieces, I'm going to go for Eriksen, and I think 9 million is a really good price as well. And then my striker, I think I'm going to stick Kane in there for now, and then we'll work around it. There are 2 players that are absolutely nailed in my team, and that is Messi. I think I'm going to go for Messi, and he will be my captain on match week 1. And I also really like Neymar as well. I just think Messi and Neymar are 2 like talismen for their figures, for their teams. Brazil and Argentina are favoured to win the tournament. Well, they're right up there with the favourites, and I think picking the talismanic figures from the teams will be a good play. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford him in this draft, but Rafinha, I think he's pretty much back to play on the right for Brazil. I think 9.5 million for the Brazilian right winger is a really good price. Definitely a player to keep an eye on, although I'm not sure I can quite get to him with how this team's going. Then we need one more midfielder, I think. I think for me that man's going to be Valverde. Just looking at some stats from that Bobby thread again, I'll just pull them up. It's really useful to see. So I think there are a couple of, just in terms of that 6.5 bracket for midfielders. Sorry, my screens are going haywire at the moment. Bear with me. I appear to have lost the FanTeam screen that I was looking at. I have to bear with. But yeah, any thoughts on what I've shown so far, guys? I just have to log into FanTeam again, I'm afraid. I think I accidentally closed the tab. Oh, we were in the middle of a draft as well, so I'm going to have to do all that again. Sorry about that, folks. All right, we're back. So we had Martinez in goal, didn't we? He went Dumfries and Timber. And then I had Trippier. Kane. I liked, that was where I was going. I was going to show I was just going to show that Valverde's back to take some free kicks for Uruguay. I think 6.5 million. You know, he's looked really good for Madrid. I think he's a really good player. There aren't. I don't know. I don't know if you guys are feeling the same, but looking through the list of players in the game, I'm really struggling to find like really cheap enablers that I like the look of. I mean, feel free to chime in the chat if you've got any special ones. But I've seen a few trustworthy players that I sort of follow. They like the look of I think Kamada from Japan. He's in a few that I've seen. I'm pretty sure it's him. But really, when looking through all the cheapies, I'm not seeing anyone that's screaming out to me that I should be picking. Choupo-Moting, maybe. But he's Cameroonian, isn't he? And I just don't. I think Cameroonian they're tipped to be like absolute whipping boys this year because they don't have a very good team. But I'm sure that will come to bite me. But I just don't think I could be picking from Cameroon. Then I had Messi and Neymar, didn't I, as my other two? I'm pretty sure Neymar's the most expensive player in the game as well, but I think he's worth the money. You know, he's that talisman figure for Brazil. You know, I expect the Brazilians are expecting them to win the tournament. He seems to handle that pressure quite well, to be fair. I think he's a really good pick. And then Eriksen, wasn't it? That was my other one. Alright, so that's back to where we started. So I've got 11 million now to pick two players in defence. I think that automatically makes me think I have to downgrade my keeper and have to go for Courtois. Looking at Belgium again, I'm liking the look of Castagna as well because obviously he's quite an attacking fullback, and someone will come in if he doesn't play. I think he's not tagged. He was marked earlier as a doubt, but I think he'll start at one of the fullback positions for Belgium. And I've got 5.5 to spend on a defender. I think I might go for a Uruguayan. And maybe a Raulio. That'll be my pick. This is certainly where my thinking's going at the moment with teams. Well, certainly something like that you can draft. I don't think I've had anything outside of a 5-4-1 formation yet. Boufal's a good shout, Jamie. I know he takes the penalties for Morocco. Should we see how much he is? It might mean that I can actually slightly improve my team if I do that. He's 6 million, so he's slightly cheaper than, and that probably means I can upgrade. Let's do that. Let's go back for Martinez. That's a pretty tidy team you can make there with Boufal, isn't it? But yeah, something like that I think would do you well for match week 1. Based on the clean sheet odds, the set piece take-ins, you know, the odds to win the tournament, score goals, etc. I think that's a pretty solid team. Yeah, hopefully that helps you with some team selection issues in just thoughts. And yeah, feel free to chime into the chat if you like any other players that I haven't picked. I think what I'll do next, just to finish off the stream, was go through some Twitter questions that I had. So 2 seconds while I pull up my phone. There we go. Sorry, I was just looking for the tweet with people's questions against them. Okay, so FPL Sparta is asking about cheap gems. I think they're limited. Like, certainly going into the tournament, in my opinion, they're really limited. I think the cheapest, obviously the defenders are obviously the cheapest position. I think maxing out the defenders is a good way to go because they offer some of the best value in the game, in my opinion. We've got Boufal in this team at the moment, the penalty taker for Morocco. I would say maybe like the cheapest penalty takers that I showed you in the list below. But for me personally, I'm trying not to dip into that really cheap category to start with. I also don't think you need to. I think going 5 in defence, keeping your like minimum value at like 5 million. I think you only need one like budget midfielder. I think you can quite happily build a good team with all these players. Another way that I've played it as well is rather than going cheapy enabler, it's just going without like a premium striker. So you could go for, this is one way I've played it, you could go for Darwin Núñez, who's back to start up front alongside Suarez, and that gives you quite a bit of saving that you could save from someone like Harry Kane, and that allows you to really boost the rest of your team. Because then you got like 9 million to pick a midfielder, for example. So that could be a way to play it as well. But for me, I'm not really looking at massive at those really cheap players, to be honest. FPL outer, will Gakpo start match day 1? I think he's heavily tipped to start. I think Bergwijn is likely to Suarez is 0.5 more, so you could well go for Luis Suarez if you fancy it. But I do think Gakpo's back to start match day 1. Especially with Depay being injured. But does that mean he starts number 2 when Depay's fit? I don't know. I think the question remains, who does Depay displace in that starting 11? Motley Barnes, who do you think will be the World Cup version of Patrick Schick from Euro 2020, i.e. the one striker no one's thought of that will bang? I really think it could be Darwin Núñez, not just because he's quite cheap in FanTeam. I just think he could have a good tournament. I just feel like the way international football plays and the physicality that he has, it suits him. I always remember that Lukaku, right? He always seems to show up in international tournaments. Like the amount of physicality that he has, he's pretty good at finishing. I think there's more room for first touch error in international football and in things like that. And I think obviously he shares the same weaknesses with Núñez, and I think the World Cup could be a good stage for Núñez at the international level. So I think Darwin Núñez could be a good pick. I know he's not like a proper hidden gem, but I don't think anyone is backing him to be exceptional, but I think he could well be. And then the final question was just on like a preferred structure, whether that be 5 at the back or a classical 3-4-3. I just think certainly going into match day 1 anyway, things might change. There might be like a super, unexpected cheap players that come out of the woodworks in match day 1 that we all need to buy for 2. But right now, I think the best formation is 5 at the back. I don't think I've been looking away from that. And what I thought I would do quickly before we finish is just go through the match day 1 fixtures as well, according to FanTeam. So hopefully you've got them on screen now. I'll try and move them into the middle a bit more. And just go through how I think they'll go, and then that probably ends us quite nicely. So Saturday the 20th, we got Qatar and Ecuador. I don't know if anyone saw the tweet today. It certainly wasn't from like a verified account, and I don't know how good the source is, but I think someone was saying that Qatar had already offered some of the Ecuadorian players bribes to concede a goal in the second half and lose 1-0 or something like that. I don't know how true that is, but I'll certainly be watching the game, but I don't think I'll have any Qatarians or Ecuadorian players in my team. The day that I will have players is obviously Monday. I think I'll at least have a couple of England players. I think they're heavily backed to do well defensively. And obviously Harry Kane, I think, is the top scorer of all the World Cup qualifying teams. So I think he's heavily backed to, obviously he's heavily backed to do well in the tournament. He got the Golden Boot in the last World Cup. So I'll probably have him in my team along with Trippier. Obviously Netherlands playing Senegal as well. So I'll probably have a couple of Dutch defenders, so hoping they can keep a clean sheet in that one. I think a few people might have Bergwijn in their team as well. He's expected to play up front in the absence of Depay. And then USA and Wales, I don't know. I don't think I'll be going near them. Gareth Bale obviously always shows up on in international football. And Pulisic, he just gives me talisman vibes for the USA as well. I'm pretty sure he takes the penalties for them. It probably takes some set pieces. I'd back Pulisic to do quite well. Argentina, Saudi Arabia. I definitely think Argentina are a team to hop on, and I think they'll probably win by some margin of goals to nil against them as well. I know Saudi Arabia aren't. I don't think they're actually as bad as people might think they are, but I do expect Argentina to be too much for them, and I think they'll probably keep a clean sheet in that one, which makes me think that picking Argentina defenders is a good way to go. Denmark, Tunisia. I think this will be a tougher game for Denmark than Saudi Arabia will be for Argentina. But again, I still do back Denmark to win that, and they probably could keep a clean sheet in that game. Mexico, Poland. I think that'll be quite a close one, actually. I think on paper their squads are quite similar. Obviously, Poland have the X factor, the world-class star in Lewandowski that Mexico don't. But having watched the Euros, Lewandowski didn't really get anything in that, and I'll certainly be avoiding him in the World Cup as well. I haven't even mentioned him so far, but based on what I saw of them in the Euros, that was enough to really put me off going for Lewandowski from the off. And then we got France, Australia. I think Australia are picked to be one of the worst teams in the tournament. I'm trying to say that as respectfully as possible. So I do expect France to win at least this game. Like I said, I don't expect them to be winning the World Cup, but I do think they'll beat Australia. So it could well be that, especially considering Australia, to be fair, are expected to be one of the whipping boys. Even though I've said I don't really back France, obviously the likes of Mbappe, etc., they do make good captains for Matchday 1. Morocco, Croatia. I expect that to be a Croatian win. Will they keep a clean sheet? I'm not entirely sure. Like we were saying, I think Morocco, they've got some good players, and Croatia are almost like an ageing squad, so they could well concede in that one. Germany, Japan, I think that'll be a win for Germany and possibly a clean sheet, and likewise for Spain and Belgium as well. And then on a Thursday, we got Switzerland, Cameroon. I think this could be a good game for Switzerland assets. Like I said, Cameroon aren't expected to do too well. Most of us know of a left back for Switzerland, Ricardo Rodriguez, that takes penalties. I didn't give him any credit when selecting my team, but he could be someone to look at. Uruguay, South Korea. I think Son will probably play that game. And South Korea do have some other decent players as well, but I do expect Uruguay to win that one. I just don't know what we're going to get with Son. Obviously, it is reliant on how good the rest of the team are around him. I think it remains to be seen how well he do. I do expect Uruguay to win this game and likely keep a clean sheet. And the same for Portugal as well. I think that'd be too much for Ghana and probably keep a clean sheet in that one. But the Brazil-Serbia game, I think Brazil will score some goals in that one. But I do have Serbia got some good players, and I don't think they'll be entirely a pushover. And I do think they'll give Brazil quite a good game. I wouldn't bank on a Brazil clean sheet in that one. I think Serbia have some good talents going forward, so it could be one that Brazil concede in. But yeah, those are just some quick thoughts on the game week 1. Anyway, hopefully you find that useful. But yeah, that sort of concludes everything that I was going to talk about, really. I'll just take a sip of my drink. Feel free to chime in if you've got any questions. But otherwise, I'll end it there. And I'll probably bring out another video with like my final team selection once I've been able to do a little bit more research. And yeah, we get a bit closer to the tournament. But yeah, let me know if you've got any more questions. Currently, mate, my captain is going to be Messi. Can I refresh my team? I don't actually have a captain set. But yeah, my captain's going to be Messi for game week 1 as it stands. I do think Kane, Mbappe, Neymar, those are sort of the 4 players I think you could realistically captain in game week 1 and not be disappointed. But yeah, thanks so much everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully I didn't undersell myself too much. I've only just entered the game today, but I thought I'd just make a video because there isn't much FanTeam content out there for the World Cup. I think Josh has made a video on Scout, and the guys at Manon podcast as well. I'm pretty sure Dronach made a FanTeam video as well that's really good. So if you want a bit more content, suggest trying to search them out and look for those. because yeah, they might have some information that I haven't been able to give, and yeah, hopefully by the weekend I'll be properly knowledged up and be able to pick a good team. But to be honest, I don't see it being too different from this one that I've got now, which I'll just show on screen. I'm conscious you've just been looking at my face the whole time. There you go. That's what I'm on at the moment. And Messi captain and Neymar are being my vice. Jefferson asks, would you say that KDB is worth the money in this format? Let's have a look how much he is. Noting that the penalty takers for Belgium are Lukaku and then Hazard, according to the source that I have, and I'd probably be inclined to agree with that. I'm not sure I'm going to have De Bruyne. I think if you're going to... because he'll probably be on the free kicks, won't he? It's an interesting one. I think if he had penalties, I'd definitely say that he was worth that value. But I think I'll be avoiding, just based on the fact that he's not on penalties and he's that expensive. And I probably won't be captaining him. Yeah, hopefully that's not too controversial to say. But I think 10.5 is just a bit too much for a player that doesn't take pens. Thanks everyone who said they enjoyed the stream. Thank you very much. It makes it all worthwhile. Did I have anything else to go through? Clean sheet odds, penalty takers, groups, points, rules. That was my lot. Right, yeah, that seems to be it for the questions, so I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, I should have another video out for the weekend, and I'll put my final team for everyone to see. If you enjoyed the video, like it says above me, make sure to like it, subscribe to our channel, because we'll try to pump out as much Sky and FanTeam World Cup content as we can. I don't think we're particularly interested in the main game. I don't think they've actually got all the players added to that yet either, and I just find the rules a bit confusing and there's no money on the line. So yeah, I'm preferring the FanTeam and Sky formats, so I'll be uploading some videos for those. But until next time, I'll see you later. Bye everyone.